Yes, sir.
Welcome, everyone. My name, as Natalie indicated, is Professor Nicole Morris, and I am a professor and a member of the faculty at Emory Law, but I also have the pleasure of directing our technology and law program, which we call the Tiger program. And I have some slides to take you through an overview, basically, of the program, to share some changes that we anticipate starting in the fall of 2022, to explain how students can apply. And then I'm going to open it up so we have time for questions from everyone. I understand this is an hour or 45 minutes, Natalie?
Yeah, you can present for 45 minutes and we can have the last 15 maybe minutes for Q&A.
Yeah, I think I actually have about 35 minutes of presentation.
Perfect, even better.
Okay, because I want to make sure we actually take this as an opportunity for students to share questions. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, are you able to see that? Excellent. All right, so it's our info session. It's actually the same content that I shared last month with the Emory JD students. So this will be very applicable in terms of what you're going to see. I went over the following items as far as the agenda, but as a pre-explanation for you all as prospective or admitted students, you participate in the Tiger program during your second year in law school or your third year in law school. And your only requirement is really to be an admitted Emory Law student. So it's not something that you can conditionally think about as you're applying to law school and then apply to the Tiger program at the same time. I know some other law schools have their technology programs such that when you apply to the law school, you're also applying to that particular program. We don't do that. So there are like two opportunities for you to participate in Tiger at Emory Law. So you can participate your 2L year, or you can participate as a third year student. So I'm going to go over some of the program structure, goals of the program, how students work in teams, some specifics about the curriculum and curriculum content, career benefits and outcomes, really what about the Tiger program helps you in terms of your career as a lawyer or in the legal industry. And then I think it's helpful, I get a lot of questions about how to apply. So I think it's helpful on the front end just to show you what the application process looks like. And then I'm going to open it up for questions from you all. So as I mentioned, beginning in the fall of 2022, we won't have a formal partnership with Georgia Tech. So I've been at Emory Law since 2015, so the past 7 years, we've had this cross-institution program where JD students work with business students from Georgia Tech. So we're uncoupling that classroom instruction. I anticipate we're going to continue to work with Georgia Tech because they are the engineering school here in Atlanta, and they have a lot of really cool engineering innovation happening over there, as well as regular or non-engineering related innovation. So we won't stop working with Georgia Tech, but what we're doing in terms of uncoupling in not having a formal structured academic instruction is we currently have a 1 semester course where there are JDs and MBA students in the classroom together that we're going to stop doing at the end of this semester. So what it really means is the Fundamental of Innovations courses that are required for the Tiger program will be continuing as usual at the law school with just JD students. And we're going to partner with either, we're continuing to partner, but we will bring in projects from Emory innovators, so PhD and researchers at Emory, researchers at Georgia Tech, researchers at Georgia State, any sort of institution that's close to the Atlanta area that would like to have us work on their commercialization or help them with their innovation project. And we formed a new partnership with the Department of Energy, which is DOE, which provides opportunity to work with really world-class researchers at a number of different laboratories across the US. So in the fall of 2021, I know this print might be super small, so I apologize, but it's part of the news. It was a PR press basically put out by the law school in the fall of 2021. So you can find this article on Emory Law's website. But we formed a partnership with the technology transfer group for the National Nuclear Security Administration. And they are part of what I'll call like the national labs ecosystem for the government. So you've got Sandia Lab out in California, Livermore, Los Alamos Labs, there are labs in Idaho, Kansas City, really spread out all across the US. There's some labs up in the Northeast corridor as well. And we work with them to source some of the innovation projects that the law students will work on. How we figure out which projects are really ideal for Tiger are projects that are focused on some innovation that has a commercial or use in commerce sort of aspect to it. So it's not purely theoretical research, it's research and innovation that could lead to a new product that you would sell on the market, or a new process that you can put into another product, or some commercial facing use that's possible and permissible for the innovation. And with the national labs and the Department of Energy, most of their innovation, they work with other federal agencies. So maybe it's Department of Defense or some other part of the military or EPA or some other federal agency. And they noticed that they have, they struggle with having these innovative projects leave sort of the federal government ecosystem. So the partnership's really fantastic as an opportunity for NNSA to really widen their scope in terms of how they can think about these projects and get them further down the readiness sort of timeline for potential commercial partners. And it's a great opportunity for our students at Emory to work with these world-class researchers and laboratories to learn some really cool, cutting-edge innovation, things that are not fully in the public domain, and to work with folks in terms of the researchers who are solving some really complex problems and how those technology solutions can be applied to a different problem in the market. So that's really what's exciting about that new partnership. And we had a fantastic fall 2021 run, and we anticipate having some new projects in the fall of 2022 that could continue to spring of 2023, or we could have sort of, a higher throughput, meaning we have new projects in the fall and new projects in the spring. So I know I'll probably get some questions from you guys in the Q&A, but that's kind of a high level framing of what is happening with that DOE partnership. So in terms of what we do and what are some of the learning points within Tiger, I think this slide captures it the best. And it's really the strategic implications of commercializing products or product development, if you want to think of it like that. What does that mean? So before any product is brought to market, there's an assessment of risks that are associated with it. So some of them are business risks, whether there's regulatory concerns or regulatory requirements. There are legal risks from maybe an intellectual property perspective in terms of how the innovation is potentially infringing or looking at other competitors who might have a patent position, and whether or not what we're doing as far as bringing this product to market would infringe on another's, intellectual property rights or copyright or trademark rights. And then there's what can we do to create competitive advantage and assess our own competitive needs, and should we protect the innovation through a patent filing or trademark or other intellectual property, or do we need a license? Should we partner with someone else to further develop it? So all of these considerations are really things that we talk about and think about in the Tiger program. And because these are real innovation projects, so this isn't like a simulation, meaning we come up with some fictitious project and go through the motions. These are real folks who are either career researchers like the National Lab employees or innovators within a university setting. And that's their career focus as well. So we're helping them sort of refine their thinking on what needs to happen. And all of that learning is very much applicable to legal and client counseling once you leave the law school, because clients come to you with all kinds of problems and at all various stages in terms of the maturity of their business. They might be doing a product line extension, going into a new market, and you still need to assess the risks associated with all of those opportunities. So I like to think that the skills you learn in Tiger in terms of dealing with a lot of uncertainty, in terms of what to expect next, how to manage multiple subject matter domains, are things that you can take into your practice after you leave Emory Law. So the other unique aspect about Tiger is you will work in teams of 2 to 3 JD students. So at a minimum, you'll have at least what I call like a teammate, a buddy within the program. And then you partner where the students really partner and work on a bigger team of like 4 to 6 when you're doing the innovation projects. And then there's accountability among team members through the peer evaluation. So there will be an opportunity to report on how well you are performing as a team member. And that's important in terms of being accountable to group projects and all of that experience. And Tiger is very much a team experience. So you will rely on any undergraduate experience or work experiences that you've had working with others. And that's an important aspect. So here's this, we're going to walk through some of the high level content points that we cover in the first year of the curriculum. So the courses that you will enroll in as a Tiger student, they're called Fundamentals of Innovation. So team building, as you can see, is one aspect of the component to the first semester. We focus on intellectual property quite a bit because it tends to be one of those issues that if you don't resolve well up front, it can kind of haunt you with your product development efforts. You will learn how to do an industry analysis and market analysis, marketing strategies, and there's a framing for how we like to think about this commercialization workflow, and that's the lean entrepreneur framing. It's kind of a business school framing. And that means that you are evaluating things within like a 6 to 8 week turnaround, such that if you discover some obstacles that you cannot overcome, you can pivot in a different direction for your enterprise. So that's semester 1. And then semester 2, we sort of build off of the learning from semester 1, get more deeper into sort of the financial and funding strategies for the enterprise, coming up with a commercialization plan. I would say throughout the first year, we're looking at project management tools and planning out your workflows in a project management kind of thinking. And there's another framing for how we like to think about what aspects of Tiger in terms of evaluating new technologies and a new enterprise. And that's the business model canvas. And that basically looks at what is the value of this innovation to the market. So what's the problem you're solving? How does your technology or innovation solve for this problem? And then is this the problem that the consumers or the market is really demanding a need to be solved? So are you solving the right problem? there's a process that's called customer interviews and customer sort of innovation, where we will meet with potential customers or partners to get a sense of, if we were to bring this to you, would this be useful? Are there changes or things that we should be thinking about differently? Is this the most pressing problem that you have? Is this your pain point that's really needs to be addressed by this innovation? So that business model canvas is the framing for how to evaluate the value proposition for your innovation. And that's it. Once you take these 2 courses, you will be eligible to receive a certificate in the Tiger program. And then in the 3rd semester, this is really an optional course. I call it special topics, so that's really the title within the course registration, but it's run like an entrepreneurship law class. So you are now legal counsel for an early stage business, and the point of the process that we go through in the course is from soup to nuts with what's happening for a startup. So corporate formation issues, whether or not the founder is still employed, if it's a small startup, the company founder might be doing 2 jobs, right? Working on the startup on the side while working for another employer. And if the startup business competes with the founder's existing employer, there's some issues there. So we'll talk about fiduciary duty and what you need to know if you are a startup founder, but you're competing with your current employer. We'll look at negotiating with venture capitalists and writing a term sheet. And what are all the issues about funding and funding strategies for startups? We'll look at startup exit and M&A activities. And I have a lot of guest speakers that come in, some of them on the company founder side, some of them are legal folks, attorneys who represent or work with early stage enterprises, and they talk about basically topics of the day and current issues that their clients are facing and how they help them navigate that. And then in the last 3 years, I've seen a rise in legal tech. So there's new innovation happening in the legal industry. So I've brought in, startups and folks who work in companies or consulting groups that help law firms or in-house legal departments, revise and revamp their legal processes. So you'll have contract automation work going on, some new AI tools, and really what does that mean in terms of how lawyers should be thinking about their practice and helping clients. So here's another kind of like deep dive in terms of the fundamentals of innovation course. 2 other things that I didn't touch on in the previous explanation is I've also started an ethics of innovation track. The Theranos company sort of hoax was the inspiration for it. So I wrote a case study that looked at what happened with that product development failure, but more importantly, the role of lawyers in perpetuating some of the fraudulent activity. If you're totally unfamiliar, don't worry about it. Just Google Theranos. Probably saw the Hulu or watching the Hulu documentary right now, but it started like back in 2014, right? So it's been a long journey, and the founder, Elizabeth Holmes, was found guilty of fraud in January, February of this year. So the work that we focus on in the case study in the Tiger course is really looking at the role of lawyers during that time. And like I mentioned, we talk about intellectual property a lot because it tends to be really important for any new product or new business. And more broadly, we'll talk about technology, entrepreneurship, and competitive analysis and industry analysis. One of the other sort of co-curricular aspects of Tiger throughout my time at Emory Law has been our innovation conferences. So we started in 2016 with looking at solutions in healthcare. And at the time, telemedicine was really innovative. And then it kind of went away, and now it's back again due to COVID and people sort of being remote. But we've marched through various innovation trends and things that are kind of top of mind or really hot in terms of market and consumer. So we looked at blockchains in 2018, AI in 2019, more broadly, the future of the legal industry, which included legal education. So programs like this are really popping up across many different law schools. There's programs where students learn how to code and deal more deeply with AI. They're partnering with master's degree programs where technical students and law students are in the classroom together. So there's lots of different legal analytics is another one that's pretty popular now. Lots of different things happening in legal education. We also focused on what's happening in the practical or practitioner world. We looked at equity issues and innovation in 2020, or excuse me, 2021. And that was really important from the innovator side. So the inventors and folks who represent themselves in the patent office, in addition to VCs and funding for founders of color and women and what's happening there. And then this past January, we focused on NFTs, digital assets in the metaverse, and what to expect really with the metaverse in terms of Web3, and as people move to sort of virtual worlds and ecosystems, and how that will look and impact the legal industry. So here's some career outcomes that are really positive that I think have trended well over time. I think, generally speaking, over 95 at least, but about 97% of the Tiger 2Ls receive a summer associate position. And then about 95% are fully employed at graduation, and maybe another 90, because I think there are people who are looking at their Tiger experience more broadly and will do careers that are outside of intellectual property. By intellectual property, I'll include trademarks, I'll include copyrights, I'll include patents. But the Tiger experience is broad enough to kind of give you really a strong background into non-intellectual property related areas. So here's some frequently asked questions, and I'm sure there's going to be others from you all as a group as well. You don't need a science background to participate, right? So how does that work? If you don't have an engineering or science background as a law student, you can definitely apply for Tiger. The only thing I will, quiz you on or question during our interview is your interest in technology, right? So that is important because all of the innovations that we focus on are STEM-based innovation. So your comfort level and just curiosity will be part of the requirement, I guess, but you don't need a technical background. You can apply as a 2L or a transfer student. The program is a 1-year commitment. And if you have any understanding of Emory law, there's a transactional law program that we have here that's quite a great, excellent program. And it has a myriad of courses looking at transactional practice, from deal skills, contract drafting, and all of sort of the things that would happen in a transactional legal practice. And you can get both certificates. So other than that 1-year Fundamentals of Innovation course requirement, you can take any other transactional law class while you're at Emory Law. And this is from this year. So here's some current data. The application is fairly painless, right? It's an online application form. There are 2 short answer questions, which I'll show you shortly. There are interviews that are happening literally today and tomorrow. And then next week, I will send out an email notification to candidates who were invited an invitation to participate. And I think I'll get about 30 students. We had about 48 students apply. So one of the questions I frequently get is like, is Tiger oversubscribed? Meaning, I get 100 applications and I can only see 30. I don't. I usually get somewhere around 50. So there's 48 this year. And about 2/3 of those students will be admitted. And here's the 2 short answer questions. Why are you interested in the program? That's obviously sort of self-explanatory. And then what are your career aspirations? Part of the reason I ask about career aspirations is I want to make sure that participating in Tiger is a good fit for any JD candidate, because there's lots of things you could be doing with your time, right? Emory as a university as a whole has a phenomenal business school. We have a phenomenal school of nursing, school of public health. So I encourage JD students to take courses at other units on campus that interest them. And, participating in Tiger, in terms of the time commitment, it's 3 hours of class instruction per week, plus maybe another 1 or 2 of team time. So, that's a heavy commitment. And if it's not something that will fit well with what you want to do when you graduate from law school, it's critical to know that up front. So that, I think, is the last fairly heavy content slide. If you want to learn more, I encourage you to follow us on Twitter. I don't know what your social media habits are. We also have a IG page, but I don't remember the IG handle. But our website for the program, tigerinnovation.org, is another helpful place that we'll post events, we'll post articles that are relevant to entrepreneurs, technology, innovation, legal tech, and it will be a good way to kind of keep up with what's happening. And now I'm gonna stop sharing and then open it up for questions.
Thank you, Nicole. That was phenomenal. A lot of good information, Professor Morris. So one quick question. I'll start the questions off. I just want to remind everybody, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat room. So you gave some statistics as it relates to careers, which are really, really great statistics. I'm just wondering what specific jobs might people who have the certificate in IP or outside of what jobs would they pursue, or what jobs would lead from this program?
Yeah, so I think they're typical JD jobs. So most students will go work for a law firm. They can work in the intellectual property practice group. Some students work in patent prosecution, which is something that if you have the patent bar, you can write patent application exams for the USPTO. I will say one of these current students in my class who attended this session last year mentioned to me that I mentioned the patent bar. And I would say that if you have an engineering degree and you are thinking about being a patent attorney, taking the patent bar while your summer before law school is a phenomenal idea. And if you pass, it just gives you really another leg up in terms of being competitive for jobs with law firms after your 1L year, after your 2L year. So I'll strongly encourage that. But I've also had students who graduated from Tiger participate or work in real estate practice at their law firm, corporate M&A. It's really hard to go in-house as a recent law student or law grad, but down the line, students, of course, have moved to in-house positions. Some students go clerk for federal judge. So it's all of the typical things you would do.
Very good. And do you teach all of the classes in the program? And how many classes are there total?
So yeah, as I mentioned in the slideshow, there are 2 classes, the fundamentals of innovation, and yes, I teach both.
So what brought you to Emory and what keeps you here?
Well, I mean, I came here because the job, but the Tiger program, it's a phenomenal program, and it's really unique in terms of bringing together law and sort of business and technology in one academic sort of instruction. So I think that the practice of law is really multidisciplinary, and having an opportunity to have some multidisciplinary experiences as a law student is super helpful to you.
Well, those are all the questions that I have. If none of our participants have any other questions, are there any parting words you think? These are all admitted students, and so they're making decisions. They're thinking about what areas of law they want to practice in. I think they're exploring as well. Are there any parting words you'd like to give?
I would just say cast a broad net, come into programs like this to learn about what's happening at Emory. As you're considering other schools, I would go to whatever programs that they're offering. Um, one of the helpful things to think about would be where you want it to sort of land after law school. What's great about Atlanta and Emory, the Atlanta market, the Atlanta legal market is fantastic. But there are other really fantastic legal markets as well. And thinking about your legal career, starting with law school. So to the extent that you want to move or be in a certain city, you should think about those cities as part of your law school journey. So like you should be in the law school of the city that you eventually want to practice in, because the local firms come here to recruit, and people recruit all over the country, but it's just easier to meet people at events, or they come to the law school to speak as either guest lecturers or adjunct faculty. And I would say that ecosystem, you are able to form relationships earlier. You can definitely, be on the East Coast and go to the West Coast or vice versa, but you're going to have to put in more work if you want to do that. So I would just encourage you to just think long and hard that whatever your legal career track that you want to put yourself on, the timeline for that starts in law school. So just be mindful of that.
Well, thank you, Professor Morris. We appreciate you sharing with us about the Tiger program and the classes and curriculum and where it gets you. And so, yes, we just want to say we appreciate it.
All right, very good.
All righty, so we'll go ahead and close this session. And for anyone who wants to go back and look at the recording will be posted probably a day or so, probably tomorrow-ish, if not by the beginning of the week. And so you guys have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.